He didn't yell. He didn't cry. He just started packing his desk into a cardboard box, and the entire office went dead silent because everyone knew exactly why. Owen Mercer had given this company 8 years of his life, and in the next 60 seconds, he was about to walk away from all of it. Over 2 hours. Just 2 hours. Stay with me, because what happens after he walks out that door is the real story. Owen worked at Brighton Logistics, a freight company just outside Columbus, Ohio. Not glamorous work, but every late truck, every damaged shipment, every crisis nobody else could solve, it landed on his desk. His co-workers joked he could fix a disaster with a yellow notepad and gas station coffee. He laughed along. It was easier than admitting how exhausted he really was. 3 years earlier, his wife Marissa had died suddenly, with almost no warning. Since then, his whole world had shrunk down to one thing: raising his 6-year-old daughter, Nora, alone. Every day started at 5:15 in the morning, lunches packed before sunrise, her curly hair braided from a tutorial he'd watched 100 times, drop off at Maple Grove Elementary, then 25 minutes to work. He was never late, not once, and nobody knew what that actually cost him. His elderly neighbor, Mrs. Callahan, watched Nora every afternoon until he got home. He tried to pay her. She always tried to refuse. It worked. Barely. But it worked. Then Brighton hired a new CEO, Gavin Holloway. 42, sharp suit, sharper opinions, and one belief driving every decision: squeeze more hours out of people, and the business fixes itself. Flexible schedules vanished overnight. Remote work, gone. Family accommodations quietly deleted from the handbook. Consistency creates excellence, Gavin loved to say in meetings. To Owen, it translated to something colder. Your life outside these walls doesn't matter to me. At first, Owen adapted. He skipped lunches, answered emails after Nora fell asleep. One night, she looked up from her crayons at the kitchen table and asked, "Daddy, are you listening?" She wasn't really asking. She already knew the answer. That question sat in his chest for weeks. Then spring hit Columbus hard. Rain, flooding, road closures, buses running late, shipping schedules collapsing. Everyone at Brighton was drowning, Owen included. One Thursday, Mrs. Callahan called, apologizing. Her arthritis had flared up. She couldn't watch Nora the next day. Owen spent his entire lunch break calling every daycare within 20 miles. Nothing. Not one open spot. So he emailed HR that night, asking for permission to leave 2 hours early on Friday. He'd make up every minute over the weekend. No response. Friday came. At 2:10, the answer finally landed in his inbox. Denied. Company policy. He walked straight up to Gavin's office. "I understand everyone has responsibilities," Gavin said, barely glancing up from his laptop. "My daughter doesn't have anyone to pick her up." "Then hire someone." "I can't afford emergency childcare every time the schedule changes." Gavin finally looked at him. "That's not the company's problem." The room around them went silent. Owen kept his voice level. "I've never asked for special treatment. I've covered weekends. I've worked holidays. I haven't taken a single sick day in almost 4 years." Gavin leaned back in his chair. "Then maybe you're due for one." Something in that sentence landed like a slap. "I only need 2 hours," Owen said quietly. "No. Then I don't know what else to do." Gavin shrugged. "Do as I said, or quit." Owen didn't argue, didn't raise his voice. He just walked back to his desk and one by one, packed up 8 years, a chipped coffee mug Nora painted in kindergarten, a tiny wooden truck she swore brought him good luck, a photo of the family he'd lost. His co-workers watched in silence. Even the ones who barely spoke to him understood exactly what they were witnessing. His closest co-worker, Priya, walked over. "You don't have to do this." "I do," he said, forcing a smile. "You'll find another job." "I hope so." "What about insurance?" He looked down at the photo in his hands. "I'll figure it out." Then he carried his box past every cubicle, out the door, into the rain. No speeches, no slammed doors, just footsteps fading down the hallway. In his truck, hands on the wheel, he gave himself exactly 60 seconds to breathe. Then he drove to get his daughter. Nora was waiting on the front steps, hugging her backpack, and the second she saw the truck, her whole face lit up. "I knew you'd come." "I'll always come," he told her. She spotted the box on the seat. "Daddy?" "I think we're going to have a different kind of week," he said. She didn't ask another question. She just slipped her small hand into his. Sometimes kids understand silence better than adults ever do. That night, they ate boxed macaroni and cheese under a calendar still stuck on last month. No TV, just quiet. "Are you going back to work Monday?" Nora finally asked. "I don't think so." "Did you get fired?" "No. I left." She nodded, like that answered everything. Then she pulled a drawing from her backpack, the two of them, holding hands, in front of a little house. At the bottom, in shaky letters, "Dad is always there." Owen folded it carefully and slid it into his wallet. "I think this belongs with me now." The weeks that followed were hard. At the library, updating his resume, application after application vanished into silence. One recruiter loved his experience, but admitted they needed someone without scheduling restrictions. He thanked her anyway, then sat staring out the window, wondering if Gavin had been right. Maybe nobody cared anymore. Back at Brighton, the cracks started spreading, quietly at first. Shipments slipped. Clients who used to ask for Owen by name were now explaining the same problem to 3 different people. Priya found herself digging through his old notebooks, pages of handwritten shortcuts nobody else knew existed. One sticky note read, "Always call Henderson Foods before assuming they're late. Their schedule shifts every Friday." Another, "Truck 214 overheats on steep grades. Give it extra time." Years of quiet knowledge, and no spreadsheet had ever captured it. Gavin blamed the staff, demanded more urgency. Morale sank lower. 3 experienced coordinators quit within a month. New hires lasted weeks before walking out. The company wasn't collapsing. It was just becoming a place nobody wanted to stay. Meanwhile, Owen took temporary work at a small nonprofit that distributed food to community kitchens. Smaller office, older computers, worse coffee. But on day 1, the operations manager, Meredith, shook his hand and said something he hadn't heard in years. "We're glad you're here." And she meant it. When Owen explained he needed 15 minutes every afternoon to get Nora, Meredith didn't reach for a policy manual. She just asked, "Can you still meet your deadlines?" "Absolutely." "Then we're good." Nora started spending afternoons at that office, coloring in the corner, watering the plants, greeted by name by every driver who walked in. Someone even taped a sign to the fridge, "Nora's yogurt, please don't eat it," with a little smiley face drawn beside it. Back at Brighton, one of the company's oldest clients requested a meeting. Not about pricing, about quality. Shipments were slipping. Calls went unanswered. "We're not angry," the client said calmly. "We're disappointed." Somehow that landed harder than any shouting match could have. Gavin sat alone in that conference room long after everyone left, remembering Owen standing right there asking for 2 hours. Not a raise, not a promotion. 2 hours. And he'd called it unreasonable. Days later, driving past the community warehouse, Gavin spotted Owen's old pickup outside. He almost drove past. Instead, he pulled in. Inside, Owen was laughing while unloading a truck with an elderly volunteer. He looked lighter, not richer, not more successful, just lighter. Gavin walked over. "I owe you an apology," he said. "I thought managing people meant treating everyone exactly the same. It doesn't. I understand that now." He glanced toward Nora, drawing quietly near Meredith's desk. She waved. He waved back, and finally understood what Owen had really been fighting for all along. Not convenience. Time. "Would you consider coming back?" Gavin asked. Owen smiled. "I appreciate it, but I already have everything I was looking for. And what could I have done differently?" Owen thought for a moment. "You could have asked one more question before giving one more order. No dramatic music, no cheering co-workers, just two men shaking hands, walking away a little wiser than before." Months later, Brighton Logistics quietly introduced flexible scheduling for parents and caregivers. Managers were trained to listen before refusing. Nobody ever named the policy after Owen. Most employees never even knew why it changed. It didn't matter. Sometimes the people who make a workplace better never get the credit. They just leave behind proof that things could be different. At the warehouse, Owen finally found what he'd been missing for years. Peace. The paycheck covered the bills. The work meant something. And every single afternoon, without rushing, without apologizing to anyone, he picked his daughter up himself. Fridays, they stopped for ice cream. Nothing fancy. But it became theirs. One evening, licking a chocolate cone, Nora looked up at him. "I'm glad you quit." Owen laughed. "So am I." Because real success was never about keeping the biggest job. It was about refusing to lose the people who are waiting for you when the workday ends. If this story hit you somewhere real, hit like, drop a comment, and share it with someone who still believes kindness is worth the cost. And if you want more stories like this one, subscribe to Aftermath Tales, because the aftermath is always where the real story lives.